So the show goes on. It's been announced in the past couple of hours that Robert Helenius will step in to fight Anthony Joshua this Saturday. It's not the fight we want, but it's the fight we have. And I personally, I don't have an issue with it, purely because I look at it in the context. Of course, I'm not really surprised it's a fighter of this level. And if you're not really surprised, it kind of, I guess, takes away from the disappointment. I feel like the people who are disappointed at this announcement are the ones who had kind of absurdly high hopes, like Eddie Hearn and Joshua were going to make this massive statement of intent and they were going to get in a top-ranked heavyweight contender or something like that. That was never going to happen. Let's be real. I don't sound like a hypocrite because some of you might even remember just on Saturday I was trying to wish into existence them bringing Filip Hrgović up from the undercard to the main event. But, you know, deep down, in all seriousness, we knew that wasn't going to happen. I think this is a decent fight because I feel like it's going to have the desired effect that Team AJ are looking for, and that is prep for a potential Wilder showdown at the end of this year / January. But also some rounds for Joshua to consolidate his relationship with Derek James. It's been just over 4 months since they had their first fight in the Franklin fight in April. So it's another opportunity for them to practice their working relationship out in the field. And Robert Helenius, he is, you know, I think he's an okay opponent. You know, he is vulnerable. He doesn't have the greatest set of whiskers. However, I guess you could say before he got completely starched by Wilder back in October, he was riding a little bit of a crest of a wave, maybe enjoying an Indian summer in his career. Crazy to think that he actually turned pro in 2008, which I believe was when Anthony Joshua first started boxing. So, yeah, time flies. Robert Helenius, he's not useless. He can seriously punch. He can move. You know, he's got some technique. He's not a slouch by any means, but he is vulnerable. And for those reasons, I see it as being, you know, a decent level opponent for the reasons that this fight is being made. You know, this date was never going to be Anthony Joshua in a real acid test. Even when it was scheduled for Dillian Whyte, most of us were picking Anthony Joshua to spark Whyte out. But it was going to be a gradual step up, or maybe even in line with the Franklin fight. Whereas this, I'd say this is probably a step down from the likes of Dillian Whyte and Jermaine Franklin. I just think those guys are better than Robert Helenius. However, I make the argument that it's probably stylistically better prep for, you know, a potential Wilder fight. I know Hatman, he for a while now has been calling for Joshua to fight Gerald Washington. He feels like that is really the perfect fight and a much needed fight for Joshua. And I 100% understand the rationale because, of course, Gerald Washington, he's experienced, he is capable, but he's not necessarily dangerous. He's sufficiently soft enough that AJ can maybe practice some things and get a highlight reel knockout and get his confidence back. I hear that. And of course, Gerald Washington looks the part. He's someone who you could potentially sell to some casuals. And therefore that kind of, I guess that plays a role in bolstering AJ's confidence should he stop him in dramatic fashion. But I really see Robert Helenius on a similar level. I know officially Robert Helenius is an inferior fighter to Gerald Washington because Gerald Washington actually stopped him, which is a little bit of a damning indictment because Gerald Washington doesn't usually stop anyone. Like, he is not the most ferocious fighter you've ever seen. Does have ability, but he's very soft-centered, I think is a good word to describe him, or a good phrase. Robert Helenius is a bigger puncher. I feel like Robert Helenius moves well, which I guess comparable to Gerald Washington. But I want to say that Robert Helenius also been active as well. Of course, he quite famously now fought last week. Actually, no, it was like on the weekend. It was like 3 days ago. So very recently. So he's going to be in shape. You'd hope so. I guess there's a good chance that he's in shape or close to it. Whereas Gerald Washington, he last fought on the 1st of January 2022. So he's been out of the ring for a long time. And, I feel like it's really a trade-off between Robert Helenius and Gerald Washington. As I say, I feel like they're comparable level of opponents and they both fit the bill for this particular event. What I will say, though, is Robert Helenius obviously got stopped by Deontay Wilder in October, so about 10 months ago. And Wilder stopped him in one round, completely starched him. I find it crazy that people call that fight a fix, just as a little side note. People, they're like, oh, I've been watching boxing for years, I know how to spot a fix. Well, you clearly haven't been paying attention, because you'd realise when someone legitimately has been flattened, and that's what happened to Robert Helenius. Anyway, and that does put some pressure on AJ, because if he doesn't knock out Robert Helenius in just as quickly as Wilder did, or even quicker, then it's going to be, mission failed. At least in the eyes of a lot of people, casuals and the surface level. So there is that bit of pressure on Joshua, but I'm not entirely sure if that's a bad thing, because even with these rehabilitation fights, I feel like there needs to be some pressure, and if the pressure is coming from, how quickly can you get the guy out of there? Like, you're almost guaranteed to knock him out, but when are you going to do it? That's just like a little personal target, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to see this from all angles, but overall, I don't have a problem with the fight. It fits the bill. I think it's going to serve its purpose. What I will say, however, is I'm going to be keeping a close eye on this one, because Anthony Joshua, I guess there is the possibility that Robert Helenius could do some damage. And if he does, like if this is even remotely competitive, that is not a good look at all. And you could say that would be potentially signalling the end of Anthony Joshua as a fighter of any substance, fighting at a meaningful level. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how that unfolds. Prediction-wise, I'm not going to do a deep dive on this one. I anticipate Anthony Joshua will win. I don't think he'll knock out Robert Helenius as quickly as Wilder. I don't think it'll be a one-round job. I see this going 3, 4, maybe even 5 rounds. But I think that's going to largely come down to how Robert Helenius addresses the fight. If he is gung-ho and he feels, I'm just going to stick it on AJ, I think it ends sooner. Because I think Robert Helenius, despite the fact he can punch, he's a big target and might just get himself caught by AJ. But then if he decides to maybe approach the fight similar to how he did against Dillian Whyte years ago, I think he might be able to prolong it, because he did show some decent movement and some long-range boxing. So we'll see how that goes. But I think anywhere between 3 and 5 rounds, depending on how the fight is unfolding, that's what I'd go for. Anyway, those are just my thoughts on this fight. It's not the one we want, but it's the one we have, as I say. And from what I've seen, I just want to double check this, but has the fight been taken off pay-per-view? And is it on regular DAZN? Because I've seen the poster and it doesn't have the DAZN pay-per-view logo. It has the regular DAZN logo. So I'm seeing these tweets, live and exclusive August 12th on DAZN. So I guess, once again, it's an acceptable move in my opinion, especially as it's been taken off of pay-per-view. So I'm not arguing, I can't argue, but those are just my thoughts. Leave yours in the comment section below. What do you think of this fight, and what are you predicting? I think I'd probably be able to guess most of your predictions, but anyway, leave it down there, I'll get back to you. For now, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.